Okay.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Modern Health with Dr. Jane. Today I have Dr. Jack with me. Thanks for being here, Dr. Jack. Why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do, who you serve?
Yeah, I'd be honored. I'm Dr. Jack Kunkel. I am in New York. I've been noted for weight loss. I mean, I serve everybody in my community and online. I have a hybrid model, and I've been noted for weight loss for many years. I've written a few books on weight loss, and I started doing it in the mid '90s. My first client was a bodybuilder, and it just kind of grew in that. And that's typically what happens to people in our space, and we get sick and we can't figure out why, and then we dive in deep. And that's what kind of happened to me. Pre-med guy, working as a paramedic, master's in clinical nutrition, PhD, doctorate in natural medicine, and everything just kind of explodes from there. You get out of college and you just want to save the world, and so it leads into all the energy medicine and all the energy clearing and all the emotion codes and all these different things, and you learn from mentors all over the place. And then I started teaching foundational medicine for Cellcore, and then it just keeps blossoming. So it's kind of what I live for, is helping people. But yeah,
Yeah,
I've been noted for weight loss for many years.
I love it because it's a really big topic. I mean, obviously, I'm in the space of fertility, but I think we align in a lot of things in terms of how we look at whether it's weight loss, whether it's fertility. Usually there's a root cause. There's something that's preventing the body from, you're putting in a signal, but it's not commuting. So I'd love first to know, how did you get into weight loss? I've met you in person, big fit guy, takes care of himself well. How did you get into the space to be known for that?
I was a mess in high school, to say the least. I was a rock star partier, did it all. Kind of embarrassing. I was a mess. So people that knew me in high school knew the mess of what a mess I was. So I graduated high school, and I always think it was my mom praying for me, because I think, like, I remember leaving high school, like, my brain isn't working. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Like, no clue. I was just completely out there. And then I think by the grace of God, just kind of just said, like, you're done. Like, I just went from partying, drugs, alcohol, 1995, done everything. Never looked back, lost 99% of my friends, and didn't care. I didn't care. So I started getting into bodybuilding, and when I looked into the sport, I was like, oh, I'm never going to be able to compete with these guys. I'm a little dude. I'm not like, I don't have these huge muscles. And then I realized there was natural bodybuilding. So I didn't know that. So I'm like, wow, you don't have to take steroids. I can compete with these people. So that was just a long, 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 like 15-year journey with weightlifting. But as I got going into that, I love nutrition. So I would read all the nutrition books. Like, I really knew a lot about nutrition, and I knew a lot about getting people in shape with specific workouts. So I read all the Arnold workouts, and I learned all the stuff from the bodybuilders. And then I realized a lot of that stuff just makes people sick. Um, so that's how I originally got into it. I prepped a bunch of people to get ready for shows, turned professional myself, got on some like kind of cool podcasts back in the day when their podcasts were just like popping up on bodybuilding.com. And so I was like the natural podcast, because all the other guys were on steroids, and they're double the size of me, but I could get in shape. It was horrible getting in shape, by the way.
Yes.
My last show, Jack's 15, my oldest, and I remember putting him to sleep, and I was behind in a show, and I would do a cardio for 2 hours straight at like 9 o'clock at night. I mean, it was a complete nightmare, and not a fun time in my life. And I got even sicker from doing that, coupled with the stress of working on an ambulance, being on call 24 hours a day. Everything just tanked. My hormones went downhill. So I started getting out of the bodybuilding space and into the health space. So then, fast forward,
So can I, because that's amazing, because I had a journey of also like wanting to lose weight, and I looked up to bodybuilding because I loved the way that they looked, but I didn't want to do there's something intuitively in me. It's like, I don't want to eat broccoli and, steamed broccoli and steamed chicken for 3 meals a day, or starve myself or whatever. And like, can you make the connection for people here? Because there's a lot of people who put themselves through some really torturous routines, whether it's nutrition, whether it's exercise. because it's this break between, if I look this way, that must mean I'm healthy, where it's not really the case. That's what you're right. That was your experience.
Yeah, so I'm known as the guy who's bridged the gap. Like let's understand the mTOR pathway. Let's understand how we create hypertrophy or muscle gain in the body, but do it healthy and do it while you could anti-age. And it's a fine line with.
Yes.
What I do find is a lot of people are overtraining, then they're under eating, then they're overstressing, and then what happens? Cortisol goes through the roof. They can't sleep, and this is a typical pattern. The next thing you know, they're not sleeping, cortisol's up, stressing all the time, not ready for the show, overtraining, under eating, and then your metabolism goes done. Like it just gets into that starvation mode, and then they're like, I do. Should I just keep increasing cardio? No, like you have to eat more. No, I'm not going to eat more. I'm like, no, you have to stop cardio. You have to slow down on weight training, and you have to
Yep.
eat more. So I actually muscle test for a lot of those different things as well. I use iMate technology where we could look into the genes and all that kind of stuff as well. But it's really understanding the human body and how your body makes muscle, how your body burns fat, and when to hit the gas pedal, when to hit the brake pedal. So as you know from cell core muscle testing, we have a vial called adenosine triphosphate, and it's just Mg adenosine triphosphate, which is magnesium adenosine triphosphate. So there's no blood test or blood work for this, and you could see like how well the energy is producing in people's cells. So when I evaluate people and I'm looking in their body, um, and my testing is a little bit different than everybody's because I'll go through like all the organs and then I'll do kind of like cell core stuff, which is foundational. And foundational means like what are the toxins and pathogens in the body that immediately need to be pulled out of the body. So I get all that information and I'm checking into the ATP. And the ATP, we give it a number in our head. We talk to the other than conscious mind, which is 95,000 times stronger than our conscious mind. And we ask a yes, no question. You can't ask the yes, no question. I'm like, am I going to hit the lotto? Am I going to build this business? It's not, it's your body, right? We're in this like meat suit and our spirits in us. And that's where we are right now. And we have energetic bodies that go all out from us and stuff. So then I'll dig into these numbers and I'll get these numbers on paper and then I'll be like, okay, is there any things emotionally blocking them? And then I ask, what system do I use to clear these things? Is it pure like energy? Is it like things on them that's not supposed to be there? Are they stuck emotions from what time frame? And so even like stuck emotions, they're not in this physical me, but it's outside of your body. So I can almost see them now, and I clear them for people remotely or in person. It makes no difference.
Yep.
So then we're getting this big picture. But a lot of times what happens is if I'm looking, and I know I've talked about this MG ATP vial, it's tanked. It's just low. And it should be, 900, thousands the best. Like it should be high. And I'm getting people at 80 and 40, and it's like, oh my God, are you living? And like, you think that like I haven't been able to think in years. And I'm like, oh, you cannot exercise right now. We need you sleeping. Like then I start going into lifestyle. Is it a sleep issue? Is it a stress issue? Is it then just start getting solutions to build that ATP up so they can get out of what we call weight loss resistance, which is if you see me speak at all, it's on the cell danger response. It's what happens is instead of the mitochondria making energy in the cells, so mitochondria you have 10,000 per brain cell, 5,000 per heart cell, 5,000 per liver cell, around 2,000 in your muscle tissues per cell. You have 300 trillion cells in your body, right? So we have, I don't know how many mitochondria that is.
An insane amount, yeah. Maybe more than bacteria, right?
I can't even count. Yeah, and actually, mitochondria is an ancient bacteria. I don't know if you saw the revolution on that, but very weird stuff. Instead of them making energy in your cells, they come outside of your cells and they tell the cell next to them they're in danger. So they get a new job, and then their new job is keeping you protective. You get inflammation in your cells, and then things don't work anymore, right? So thyroid doesn't get converted into the active thyroid, and you get all these issues. But when you get a clear picture of what's going on energetically and physically, toxins and pathogens, nutrition and lifestyle, then you could unpack it for people in a way that they don't have to think about it. Like, hey, just do this. Okay, that's easy. Change this. Oh, that's easy. Like, that's weight loss. And it's some people it just takes longer. Some people it clicks easy. But to get you out of a true cell danger response, it takes some time. It's like with your job, there's no way if somebody can't get pregnant for 20 years, they think you're gonna, fix them in a month. That's not how that works.
Totally. Yeah. I don't know where I think I saw, I was like, if you suffered with something for like 6 years, you have to give yourself at least half the time. And I
Mm.
don't know how much that of it is true, but like also depending on the severity of the issue. And that doesn't mean that it takes half the time to feel better. But if you're trying to reverse some chronic conditions that have maybe potentially turned on in the womb, like endometriosis and PCOS, all those things, the exposure and toxins and the research that we see in that, it's like, yeah, this is not like a here you go, take CoQ10 and your mitochondria is going to work well now. Will you tell people a little bit about muscle testing? What it is, how it works?
Yeah. So muscle testing going to be in person where you're pushing an arm and you're looking for a yes, no response. And there's a lot of different type of muscle testing techniques. Like nutrition response testing and advanced kinesiology and these types of things. Those are like, some of the older school one. And there's probably 30, right? And I try to learn as many as I can of them. Just to see like, oh, this works better for here. Like, oh, nutrition response testing does all these organs, but they don't talk about, vitamin points and, digestive points. And like, they're missing that point, oh, the lymphatic's actually there, not here, so you put all these systems in, but it's a yes, no response. And if you're pushing on an organ, so if I push on this organ, there's a problem. And this is normally a strong muscle, your arm will be weak. So it's always just it's a simple concept. It's a yes, no. Is this arm strong? Is this arm weak? And you, as the provider, you set the intention of what that is, because you could do it the opposite. A strong arm is a weak muscle, is a weak organ. You can set the attention, because you're as a healer, you have to be healed. There's all these rules. You have to have good intentions. You can communicate with the other than conscious mind. Like I said, it's just so much more powerful than the conscious mind, but it can't communicate. It doesn't speak, right? It's not how that works. It doesn't speak. It's very intelligent. It makes every cell in your body move and talk, and it's incredible. So it's a yes, no response, and you go through the organs, and then with cell core muscle testing, we actually just use vials that are stressors. So we like to say that people like, you are Superwoman or you're Superman, and this is your kryptonite, and their arms are like wobbling. And we could put vials way outside of their energy field, this big, and their arms wobbling. They're like, what is that? I'm like, that's your kryptonite. That's what we got to get out of your body.
Yeah.
So muscle testing is a non-invasive way to check out the other than conscious mind. Some people call it the autonomic nervous system because you technically are running through the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. But when you learn muscle testing at a deeper level, you'll see that it's not just that at all.
Yeah. And I mean, so back to kind of your story, you crashed bodybuilding, and then like, how long did it take you to build out of that and restore and compete? Or I don't know, did you compete after that, or did you?
I got sick in the mid 90s. I got myself back with nutrition. And then again in like the 2000s after competing. I turned professional. Oof, that was 2007. And that's when I really beat myself up too much, way too much. Way overtraining, eating the bland foods, nutritional deficiencies, not understanding how the body works completely,
Yep.
thinking I did, but I didn't, when you're young, you just
Yeah,
think,
totally. Yeah. I know everything. You actually know nothing.
yeah, I know. I have two teenagers, so I know that feeling because they know everything. But yeah, so I crashed. It took me a while to get out of it. I saw 3 different functional medicine docs. Spent a lot of money. They didn't help me. It was a lot of lifestyle things and nutritional things, and that's when I really started getting into clinical nutrition. I finished that degree. That helped me a lot. I studied a lot of Western, or a lot of the Eastern medicines, the Chinese medicine and all that kind of stuff. And so I started incorporating that. And then I started getting into quantum nutrition and quantum healing through the college. I went to Quantum University. So I started incorporating that stuff. And then, one thing leads to another. I learned, this muscle testing technique and this one. And I remember starting muscle testing, many years ago. I was like, oh, this is so weird. Like I do this and I touch this. And like, what is that? It took me a
What is
long time.
happening? Yeah. Your brain can't comprehend it.
Yeah, it took me a long time to wrap my head around it. So this was like a long progression. I mean, I would say my lowest low was, I remember my testosterone being in like the hundreds. And I mean, it was low and I
Oh,
was just
wow.
no energy. My adrenal glands were completely shut down. My thyroid stopped working. I started losing all my eyebrows and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh no. So I had to unpack that. And they just wanted to put me on, all these meds. And
Yeah.
I tried it for like a short amount of time, did nothing. So I'm like, okay, this is crazy. I didn't, they wanted to put me on a lot of like antidepressants and stuff. I'm like, I have nothing to be depressed about. I don't need an antidepressant. It's not going to help me. So I was at least, knew I didn't need that.
Yeah. But you said the functional doctors weren't able to help you. And like any idea as to why? Like, do you think that was more of a unique, or you stopped searching and you just went on to yourself? Because I find that that's a big like message for my kind of listeners and clientele is like, hey, not everybody's going to be able to help you, but it is your responsibility to keep searching and to keep finding people. So I'm curious what your journey, because I went through a couple naturopaths as well until I found the one that was like, whoa, this is different, you know?
I mean, there's a lot of energetic things on unresolved, daddy issues growing up and all that kind of abandonment issues and
Yeah.
all that stuff that was never pulled out. There was a lot of underlying parasite infections, undiagnosed Lyme, things like that that they never caught, they never tested for. Just because they're functional medicine doctors doesn't mean they're, asking for the right tests. And,
Sure.
back, what the right tests were. So
Yep.
that's why I kept like looking and looking and searching and that's what you have to do. Like when I work with people, it's like you could work with 50 other people. Just let me know what they're doing and I could complement that. And I do that with a lot of patients. A
Yeah,
lot.
we're working with one together, and I love it because sometimes we get stuck, right? Like you put blank when you're like, I don't know what the next thing is, and then someone comes in with fresh energy and eyes and different experience. They're like, try this, and then boom, it clicks, and everything that else that you've been doing all of the sudden, works. So I appreciate that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really about the human metabolism is so interesting to me. Whether it's like, now I even have the abilities to like look at people's genes with technology and like, is this gene shut off? And like, I have no intrinsic factor in my stomach. Like I've been through all the blood work and never showed up. And I think that was one of the reasons why I had a thyroid problem because I was not able to absorb any B12.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Homocysteine issues go through the roof. I B9, I couldn't absorb either. Like I was having all these issues, and they just like, oh, your thyroid isn't working. It was never my thyroid, but I now my thyroid's been on a medication for 10 years. I mean, what do I do? I'd love to get off it, but I've lost enough hair.
100%. So tell me now, like when you're working in weight loss, is it mainly to prep people for a show? Do you still coach people through it at all? Or is
I
that
don't
something you recommend not to do for people?
I won't prep people for shows anymore. I stopped doing that. I'll refer them out. If people want to lose weight, I help them all the time. I used to do group classes, and
Mhm.
then I was doing online challenges. And what I realized, and as a standpoint of like what we do, it would make financial sense for me to do that. But people are so different, like so different. I can teach them a million. I mean, why I wrote my book was like I wrote a book for the basics for people to understand, but having someone read a book and implement them is impossible. So then I realized like they need coaches, they need to be tested constantly. And there has to be constant adjustments, and that could be from nutrition to sleep to stress management to a lot of different things
Your
we got
supplementation routine.
huge supplementation, other modalities like, hey, do you know somebody who has a sauna? Like you need a sauna. Like I'll ask those questions. Like I've had people like, you need hyperbaric. Like, anybody like, I don't know what that is, here it is. Let me find one near you, like use it.
Yep,
It just
totally.
depends on what they're testing for.
Yeah. And so I find the same. So like I don't do any group, I do one-on-one because I find, being in fertility, I'm like, hey, the reason that John and Katie are not getting pregnant is different than Michelle and you know, I'm blanking on a, a Jack, on a male name, but like
Yeah.
they're so every case is different, and I do find that it changes all the time as well. And so now what you're saying is like you find that customizing is the way to essentially be able to make sure that you're moving people in the right direction as
Always.
quickly as you can. Yep.
Yeah, and like I said, it's like you can't work with as many people. But like I'm 47 and it's like I'm not rich now and I don't really care to work with 1,000 people and be anymore. And I work too much as it is. Like I could get better results for people, and like when people get results, like that makes you happy. That
Totally.
makes
A lot of
you
fulfillment in that.
being fulfilled. And I have 1 million Instagram followers, and I do these programs, and you know I know people that do those. I know a lot of people that are really like big Instagram, and they have
Yep.
this huge following, and they're doing these weight loss challenges with 100, 200 people in at a time. And then I'm like, they'll show like two like transformations. I'm like, what about the rest of them? None of them. It's like 2 people out of 100. Like that's just playing the odds. That's the person who just ate Burger King 4 times a day, and they ate a little better, and you made them better. You're like, that's not what I want to do.
100%.
I kind
Totally.
of the bases.
No, I love it. I mean, will you bust some like is weight loss resistance a thing? Will you bust some myths for us around weight loss? And even myself, like something that was really helpful that I spoke to you at the muscle testing event that we went to is like, hey, how long until you start to shift or change something if somebody is stuck? Like, do you give them a month to stabilize in weight loss? And you're like, no, man, a couple weeks max if they're trying to lose weight and they're not. And I was just like, oh, got it, because I have different, parameters for certain things as well. And that was really helpful. So I'd love to, hear from an expert. Weight loss resistance, is it a real thing? And then, what are some myths around it?
Yeah, so weight loss resistance is never one thing ever, ever, ever. So it's always a multiple, many things. It could be many things, and that's okay. So that's when you work with somebody, you want to make sure that they know the questions to ask. Is it a sleep issue? Yeah, it could be a sleep issue. Is it a nutrition issue? Is it eating too much food, too little food, nutritional deficiencies, toxins, pathogens, emotional traumas, past life traumas, all these, things, dark energy on you. Like it's all there. It's all of it. Is weight loss resistance a thing? 100%. I mean, it happens to people all the time. It happens to females way more than guys, just because of the amount of muscle. Muscle is the number one driver of, your metabolism. Like, I tell females all the time, lift weights, gotta lift weights, my shoulders are too big. I promise you, your shoulders won't get bigger.
I promise you they will not get too big. That's one of the things I say. I'm like, I dare you to try to get bulky. Like I just dare you to try.
So yeah, weight loss resistance is a thing, and there's a lot of myths behind it. A lot of people think they have to exercise like so much, and they have to, eat bland foods and all this stuff, and that's not the case. So first of all, eating bland foods is going to decrease your metabolism, because food and the taste of food is actually a metabolic enhancer. So when you're eating foods that you like to eat, your metabolism increases. And that was from the psychology of the Institute of Eating. Mark David, he's not a doctor, but Mark David. He's written a couple really cool books on that. He has some cool studies. So you got to kind of eat foods that you like to eat. You got to eat foods that are convenient for you. You have to like find things that you could do every day, so it becomes an autopilot. Um, so, but you build from what they need right now. If somebody's drinking sugar-filled coffee every day, like we need to figure out a better choice for that first, and then on to the next thing, and on to the next thing. Like if you never worked out before, like here's an at-home workout. This is what you got to do a couple days a week. I want you to walk more, right? But it all depends on the testing.
Yep.
So that's the thing with weight loss resistance. That's what people come to me for. And I'm like, look, we got to be patient, but you got to listen to what I say. Because what stinks is some people do not know, and a lot of people that I don't get results for will not originally measure and weigh their food. And I'm like, you do not need to do this forever, but you need to know like what you're eating. And even though I could give you a list of 3,000 things that cause weight loss resistance, if you still don't know what you're eating, and it doesn't have to be perfect, we're not going to be able to get you from point A to point B. And that's like a hard thing. Like, oh, I don't want to do that. I know, I don't either. And you don't have to do it forever. But what happens is then we get them rolling on a simple, like, hey, here's the 3 meals you eat every day. And they're no brainers. And then on the weekends, well, I want your calories up anyway. So go out and enjoy dinner. And like, then they realize, oh, this is actually pretty easy. And then after a while, you don't even have to measure and weigh anything because you know exactly what it is.
Yep.
And then you're good for life.
And that's such a valuable skill. And I'm glad that, because that's actually what I get I'm not in weight loss, but my whole thing is like, I can't tell you what you need to do unless I understand what it is that you're doing from day to day. And what are the things that are really bad that you're doing versus like, it's okay. Because if I see that you've had 10 grams of protein all day and you've just been snacking, then that's probably going to be the first thing that we'll fix. And that will allow you to understand like, oh yeah, I'm eating like a cup of nuts in the morning. And it's like, why? Oh, just, I don't know. I didn't know that was bad, but yeah, it's a really valuable skill to learn because we have like this disconnect between how much food is actually like how much we're actually eating and what are the foods that we're eating. And we tend to say the good things. We tend to say that we're doing a lot more of the good things and kind of undermine some of the bad stuff that we're doing. And nothing like tracking your food for 3 days to show all the stuff.
Yeah, and it kind of creates awareness around the things that they need to change, and a lot of times it's just little things over time, and then those big things are things that they could do every day, and then all those little tweaks, they add up to big, enormous shifts in a month.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead.
And then a lot of times what happens is people will plateau, and then there's certain adjustments you need to make. And that a lot of times could be due to nutrition, right? So it could be, like, hey, we have to switch up the macros. Let me have you eat this and this instead of this with this, like little things like that. It could be the exercise. It could be too much, too little, and that's what we test for. Is the ATP tanking is like, we could run through the whole energy cycle. There's something in that is like, oh, we're in the middle of winter now. You just need like natural sunlight, right? Get a little red light therapy. You'll be fine. Like just little things that we could tweak as we go. Weight loss is not enjoyable to me anymore. But I can't leave it. Every time I do, God's like, no, you got to do it more. I'm like, okay. Because I'm done with it, and I'll get like 10 people. I'm like, oh no,
Yeah. What part is like not enjoyable?
Well, it's the grind. It's the grind. So you can have somebody come in here and like, oh my gosh, you're sick because your house must have a bunch of mold. Let me ask. Oh, it's in your house. Hey, take these jars, let them sit here. Well, let's find out where the mold is. Let's clean it up. And like, it's easy. I mean, I God forbid, it's horrible for people. They lose their houses and all that stuff. But like, hey, you're getting exposed. I had a lady who put on her heat the first time in the year. And she came in and I tested her. I'm like, where'd you get exposed to mold? She goes, I don't know. What do you mean? And she was waiting at daycare for her daughter before she went home. She had this like long ride. So she put her heat on for in her car. I'm like, can I go out and test your car? And her whole car was mold. And that's how she was getting sick. She's fine all summer. And then in the winter, she puts the heat on. And it's like, oh, there's the mold. I mean, it's things like that. They're simple, right? Like, oh, I've had anxiety for years. Oh, I got IBSD, I'm going to the bathroom 30 times and, we pull out tapeworms out of their butts this big and then, they're completely fine. Like it's
their
just,
IBS is good.
it's fun, right? I mean, it's gone in 2 months. It's easy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, most of my patients don't know. I know once you're a cell core practitioner, you're aware of all the parasites and all the mold, but a lot of people are not, right? They're not aware of their environment and how it's making them sick. And one of the things that I noticed with weight loss, and like even for me, I had, I gained, I don't know, 25 pounds probably the freshman year in university, and then I couldn't get it off. And it was IBS and tired, and I was working out a lot and all that jazz. And to me, it was like a really big emotional piece that I had to work through, because it's like I was just carrying this layer, and I find with weight loss in general, it's like you're carrying a layer of something, and you have to like essentially become a new person. And sometimes it's, hey, you just need to create more discipline and more routine and whatever. Sometimes it's, like you said, more emotional stuff. But with plateaus, the question that I was like, hey, how much of the plateau, like if someone's going through a big weight loss, like 50, 70 pounds, how much of the plateau is like an okay thing sometimes to let the body settle? Is that is that a thing? That's something that as a practitioner, I'm like, sometimes when you go through a lot, it's like you feel too many layers and then the body's like, hey, let me chill for a minute. Is that a
Yeah.
thing?
And so what I would recommend if anybody's going through that is that's like a time to be like, okay, I put my body into a new set point. And what that means, it's like my metabolism's catching up to my weight loss and it wants to go back up to where it used to be. So give yourself some love and be like, okay, let me see what I just lost. I lost, you know, even, 10 pounds, whatever. That's a lot of weight, 3,500 extra calories a day for 1 pound of fat. So you think about, okay, now we have, I got rid of 35,000 extra calories somehow, and I plateaued at 10 pounds. Well, let's stay on the same program. We might need it. Let me ask if do I need to adjust the cardio? Do I need to adjust the weights? We need more sleep? Is it a stress thing? Like, let's ask all those questions. Okay, here's what you got to do. Like don't be impatient this week. You might not change this week, but next week you should be back on pace. So I don't let it usually go. I'll find out why.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's like it could be as simple as like I need to lose weight or I need to increase cardio, I need to change my routine, or maybe I need to sleep more. There's something going on with work, or hey, I'm holding on to something and it's bothering me and I haven't
Yeah, and
released it.
it could be you got slapped with that person you hate. It's energy, and you just need to like say a ancient Hawaiian spiritual prayer, and just to
Mhm.
like say I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Sit in a chair, relax, say it about 10 times. You'll feel the energy go off you, and you're good to go. Right? I
Yeah,
mean,
no, that's it.
easy as that.
It's because I find for you said something that you lost 99% of your friends, but sometimes it's like as you're going through an evolution and there's people are not going with you, that there's a lot of change that goes on, like spiritually, emotionally, you're trying to learn, fit into just like becoming a different person. I find that there's a growth there that has to happen.
Yeah, and if you're trying to lose weight and you're hanging out with people that aren't happy about that, they're it's hard because they're going to want to bring you down, right? And I noticed that, when I went through a transition of like these guys are doing drugs and they just want me to do drugs, and I'm like, I'm not doing drugs, but they want me to do drugs, so I can't be around them. Like many years ago, I mean, it was 1995, so I just realized I had to separate myself. It's not fun, but there's other people out there that'll love you, right?
For sure,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, and appreciate it.
Yeah. So that is, if people are sabotaging your goals, they're very uncomfortable because you're moving ahead and they're not.
For sure. Yeah. Where do you feel like people get stuck in their, like, what's the most common reason people will get stuck or will stop?
With weight loss.
Mhm.
Yeah. Plateaus. It's typically in plateaus. They'll fall out of it and not have someone coach them back to it, to come back into what they were doing that was working, and then unpack the thing why they stopped doing it. A lot of times it's all, my husband or my wife doesn't support me. My family, we just have to eat pizza together on a Friday, and in Taco Bell on a Tuesday, and like, these things. And it's like, okay, well, my kids they don't eat good. I'm not eating Taco Bell. Right. I mean, if you could just eat something else, right? Oh no, but I don't have time. I'm like, you can make time. Like I bring a smoothie for lunch every day, or I can't work out. We could figure it out. It's what you want to do. But
Yeah.
it's a lot of times where people really need like accountability, support, and not like the support, like, oh, I'm in this weight loss group on Facebook, like you got to have someone who's your friend or your partner, or, a coach, or someone who you're working with, like, hey, I'm falling off. What do I do? Like, here's what you need to do. You got, like some
Yeah.
support and motivation.
There's a
Like,
little bit of cheerleading, I think, that's required, but I like we've owned a gym. My husband and I own a gym for a long time, personal trainer, like coach gymnastics before that. So like that coaching ability. And I really appreciate the person that can like, hey, you got this, but like, here's what you need to do,
yeah, draw the
and to help you actually get to that next level. And I find that family and friends can't really do that. That's where the mentors come in, because it's like they don't know you have parasites. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like that's the thing that's preventing you from losing weight.
Yeah, and a lot of parasites will mess up your metabolism horribly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, what's like like a share a cool case with us, that a magical case, if you will.
Yeah, I don't love magical cases, but I do love like the stories where it's like there's no way this girl is losing weight. So um Kelly, she's 62, works as an accountant. That's job. Was working around 9 to 10 hours a day. Like she just sat there and typed. Big corporation, always behind, super stress, hip issue, hard to walk, lives with her elderly mom, has to come home, take care of her. When she's not taking care of her, she worked at this card store and worked three nights a week at the card store and was dating and still wanted to go out to eat and all these things. No time, no energy, 6 hours of sleep. um did not feel comfortable in the gym, like that type of person. Those are like, and if they could do it, anybody could do it. So she's like, what do
100% yes.
I gotta do? So we just tighten up her diet, small little changes here and there. She made certain times to work out. It wasn't the like best way, but she got 3 to 4 workouts in every week. She made that more of a priority. We really worked on stress, prayer, meditation, that type of thing. When she went out, let's talk about what you're eating when you're dining out. Here's some better choices. Still enjoy your time. You need to be out with people. Like, so we unpacked that, and she lost 42 pounds in less than a year. And she wasn't, if I remember her numbers correctly, I should have looked this up. I think she lost 42 pounds, but she wasn't like, I think she came in at like
Yeah.
175.
Yeah,
So if somebody's 250, 280, it's easier, right? When
totally. Yeah.
she was shorter stature, and wasn't a spring chicken either. So we've had a lot of, I had a really, oh, this was an interesting case. I had a lady lose 20 pounds in a month, and her kidneys were filled with parasites. So what was happening is she was having extreme lymphedema, like where her legs were like, I mean, they hurt. I felt bad for her. Like you could see when she walked, like, and she was in pain. I'm like,
Yeah, she was waddling.
wow, it hurt, yeah, and she was in pain and like couldn't lose weight, did all the, they come in, I did that diet and this diet and this, and I worked with this trainer and that trainer. I'm like, something's going on. And then I'm like, whoa, like you have I think it might have been, I think it was like a hookworm, roundworm type of thing. I can't remember exactly.
Sure.
And it was like 1 month she suffered a little bit. She's like, what is happening? But she lost 20 pounds in a month. It
Yeah,
went on
because
to,
that was mostly like water and inflammation, right? From all the lymphedema. And then of course there's some adipose tissue that's going to come with that. But
Mhm.
I don't, what is your rule of thumb in terms of like fat versus, because I've had some cases and I'm not in weight loss, but if I put someone on, inflammation and drainage support and all that, and all of a sudden they lose 10 pounds in a month, and they're like, what happened? Like, I wasn't even trying, I didn't change my diet or lifestyle. To me, it's like, yeah, it was just all this excess water you were holding on to versus
Yeah,
like adipose tissue.
yeah, so my book is called It's Fat Loss, Not Weight Loss. You got to focus on losing fat primarily. But that was a pure lymphatic swelling issue. She wasn't draining her water. She was like basically drinking water. It wasn't coming out of her body. So that was just kind of like a freakish case. I Another lady who was like, she's actually married now. I'm engaged. We go out twice a week. I'm not changing my lifestyle. I'm not changing my diet. So like I'm like, all right, well, don't expect the world. And she's like I think she's 5 foot exactly. So, shorter in statue. She's late 50s. That was another one. Within 3 months, I believe she was down 38 pounds. But it was shifts. It was like
Yeah.
here, and she was working out every day, has a sauna at home, thought she was eating good. It was a nutrition thing, it was a stress thing, it was some stuck emotion thing. It was unpacking a few different things. It was the wrong type of workouts for her at the time. So there was just like some little things. She's like, oh, I could do that. Like it was just simple things. She's like, I'm going out to dinner this week. I'm like, yeah, I know you tell me every week you go. Couple
Every week you're telling me you're going out for dinner. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So I structured her, her nutrition a little bit differently on the weekdays to account for the shift on the weekends. And that's okay. That's fine. You got to live your life. Socialization is so important.
Yeah, it's funny. My professor used to say you'd rather eat a hot dog with a friend than a salad alone.
Yeah.
Sometimes we got into a phase. It's like, no, I can only have my salad and I have to stay home and I can't go out. But it was like creating more bloating and indigestion and bitterness.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that.
And then more emotional eating after the salad.
Oh yeah. That's horrible.
Yeah. So
Right.
one of the things that I'd love to touch on, because that was like one of the reasons I got into naturopathic medicine, is because um I like maxed out the diet and exercise and I was still not losing weight.
Mm.
And I think there's a lot of people who get like, this is when you get qualified or classified into the weight loss resistance. Like, what are all the things that are really, because you've touched on energy, emotions, blah, but like, can you categorize them a little bit more for people? So if you're putting an effort in nutrition and exercise, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing that, but you're probably missing, X, Y, and Z to really help things move in the right direction.
Yeah, so let's unpack them a little bit. So, the first, if we look at this kind of big picture, the first thing is like your nutrition. Like we got to figure out like what's happening when are you eating too late? Are you not fasting at all? Are you eating 24 hours a day? Are you eating 6 meals a day, but you don't have enough muscle to be eating 6 meals a day? You're not allowing, for metabolic flexibility and burning fat in between meals. Like, are you eating too late at night? Like like nutrition is a big spot. Sleep is a massive thing. Like, oh, I sleep next to my cell phone every night. Like, is your internet on? Shut your internet off. Get rid of your cell phone. Get outside in the morning. Like, okay, so then we have the sleep. So we have nutrition, we have sleep, stress management. What are we doing for stress? Oh, I'm stressed through the roof. I'm like, okay, what are we going to do about it? Like, is it prayer? Is it meditation? Is it exercise? Is it, and then it's like, okay, let's get on to the exercise. So what are we doing for exercise? There's 3 types of exercise. There's non-exercise active, the movement, non-exercise active thermogenesis, NEAT, there's cardio, there's weight training. Like, what are we missing in there? And how do we find a workout that you'll do? Right. So we're getting into this like huge lifestyle pieces. And that's why I wrote a book. I'm like, here, look, there's a lot of stuff going on. Like, here's what you're doing. Here's what I think you're doing wrong. This is my suggestion. Read my book. Here's this chapter. That's why I wrote that book. But then we start looking into, okay, what is happening? Is there an organ misfunction? Okay, so it was like, let me test these organs. Is there like an organ that's not working? Okay, so let's unpack that. Does it need nutrition? Is it a toxin? Is it a pathogen? So is it a parasite, a virus, a bacteria? Is it chemicals, glyphosates, pesticides, herbicides? Is it mold? Is it candida? Like, what is happening? Oh, I can't figure it out. Let me run a test of 4,000 things, genes, toxins, vitamin deficient, like what is it that's causing this, and then repair that. And then we get into this whole thing that we call emotions. So we are energetic beings, right? So every one of our cells are made up of atoms, and atoms are just energy, 99.99999%. We have energy all around us. We have the main chakras. We have chakras here and here and here. And like, it's like our chakra is an issue. Is it forgiveness? Is it, you're not grateful for anything. Like if God didn't create us, we couldn't breathe. Like, let's reprogram that. Is it past trauma? Is it, is it like bad energy on you? Like, you got to get rid of that. And let me find out why you have these, dark attachments. What is happening? Like, that's not okay.
Yeah, what is happening here?
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of unpacking all these pieces. But like as a practitioner, we just do that for them if they want to know. Like I'll tell people like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is, here's what's going on. Most the people that are successful are like, oh, that's cool, I get it, thank you. Like, and then we just move on instead of them thinking they have to unpack all that because it's super overwhelming. Like if you told like, if I was a female and I wanted to get pregnant and I didn't know anything about anatomy or physiology or how the body works, I would be happy to be like, yeah, tell me what to do.
Totally. Yeah,
I,
instead of like, look at all this crap you have and you have to deal with it. That's,
yeah,
I find that's whether you like medical gaslighting or whatever, it's like you just get dumped this information and be like, sorry, we don't have anything for you. And it's like, thank you. Like, what do I do with this now? Right? There's so much anxiety around
yeah, or
just
they're told they're
the body.
crazy. I had a guy, I felt bad. 3 years ago, I told him you have a mold exposure in your house. So I asked the question and I said, look, you could take these empty mason jars, put them all over your house, label them. The spores will just go into it, and I'll ask if there's mold in the jar. To make a long story short, he comes in for like 2 months, starts feeling better, never takes care of the mold, comes back like 3 months later. Hey, did you take care of the mold? No, I'm building this barn. I got all this money in this barn. I'm like, look at put the barn on hold. Like, so now fast forward 3 years. Still, you see him, he's gone because I get him better. You see him, he's gone. This time he's like out of his mind. Every doctor told me I'm crazy. I'm getting it put into the psych ward. He had some really dark energy on him. We cleared it and it changed him immediately.
Yeah.
And so he was like throwing away
Is-
everything in the house. He was ripping out the cabinets. And there was all mold. And I knew something was wrong because he emailed me and he said, hey, I cancel my next appointment. I got sick from the vinegar I was cleaning the mold with, which I never told him to use the vinegar to clean the mold with. I gave him the stuff to use. And I said, okay, I'm just worried about you. Like, if you need me, just call the office and we'll find you an appointment.
Yeah, we'll get you in.
We'll get you in. And I'm like, I hope you're okay because this is a little concerning, like
Yep.
you care about people when you work with them. Like, I care about you, dude. It's not like I don't want.
Totally. Yeah, there's a transaction. Yeah.
Yeah. So he messaged me and came back in, and I tested him, and I'm like, your mold's way too high. He was living in a hotel. I said there's something wrong, and he had a bad attachment. I cleared that, and the mold numbers were high, and then they went low because it was that bad energy holding on to a lot of that energetic signature of mold. So we cleared that, and I'm like, look, go back to your house. You've cleared most of it out. Tell these people to clean the cellar out, do what you can, open the windows at night, run your air purifier. You're going to be fine. So it's a lot of times when we're looking at weight loss or anything, it's these things that we just don't know about and that we can't see. And I'm stubborn. Like you tell me sometimes, and I'm like, I didn't hear it. So sometimes if you have to work with people that can really just tell you like, hey, I don't want to tell you this, but this is what's going on. Like it's not benefiting me to tell you, you
Yeah.
got stuck on your body. Like I don't even want to do that. That used to scare me when I first started doing that years ago. It's like, that's scary. I don't want to deal with that. But like, that's what we have to do to help people.
Yep.
So you
Yeah, I mean,
say,
that's what I love about Cellcore in the community is like it's not necessarily for practitioners because I feel like I became a such better practitioner since becoming a Cellcore practitioner with all the education and learning. And I mean, I've dove into the back end and learned everything that I could, all the videos. But it's
yeah.
just like it's not what you want to hear; it's what you need to hear.
Mhm.
It's just like, yeah, you just need it. I don't want to tell people things either, but it's like, hey, you're gonna have to stop drinking.
Yeah.
You want to get pregnant? Like you're just I'd love to say that you can keep drinking 12 beers a night, but like, and your sperm quality is not going to be changed, but
Yeah.
you know,
I've had a lot of those cases. I had a very interesting case of weight loss resistance. And it was, I think it was Chernobyl. They were a mile away from Chernobyl, and I
yeah,
tested their radiation. And I asked, it wasn't actually the radioactive metals, it was actually radiation, and it was really really high. So I'm like, hey, you got to like go distilled water. We got to put you on these binders. Like his energy, the energy was just like so tanked, and we turned that around pretty quickly. But he would have went his whole life, suffering, zero energy, zero sex drive, zero everything, right? I mean, and
yeah,
it was just something that they don't test for. Nobody's testing for that stuff.
yep,
That's why I'm in love with like energy medicine because you could just test for so much.
yep. Yeah, I mean, I love your approach. It speaks to me as well. I have a hard time because I'm an Instagram person. And I love connecting and I love helping and I have a lot of resources that I provide, but ultimately I work with people one-on-one. That's how I know I can provide results. Otherwise, it's like, hey, if you want more information to so you're not so overwhelmed by the internet. You could do this, but can you cleanse parasites in a month course by yourself? Like, unlikely. Can you mold or whatever? So I really appreciate that approach, the custom, because it's read the book, and then if you want to actually get some help and you've implemented all the stuff, then you're just going to go a lot further, a lot faster, right? When you already have the base.
Yeah.
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 Tell us about your book, where we can get it, and then.
Yeah. So my book's been out. I did the second edition. It's this is like the newer one. I think I rewrote it during COVID. But
Yeah.
it's loss, not weight loss. It's on Amazon Kindle as well.
Perfect.
I had it like a bunch of local stores, but yeah, it's fat loss, not weight. Like, just it covers the basics of weight loss. And when people understand the basics, then it makes my job easier. So it's like, yeah, I don't need to you're going to get way faster results because I'm going after like the things that, really blood work can't find, right? And there's no blood work for, radiation. They barely find parasites. They barely test for glyphosates, pesticides, herbicides, unless you spend, $5,000 on blood work. So let's find that stuff. And then let me look into the emotional aspects because there's no blood work for that. And just remember that that's all we used to do
Mhm.
before, all this Newtonian physics and stuff that came where we're just taking chemicals and putting them in our mouth and calling it a pill. So blocking pathways and messing up people. There's reasons for some of that medicine, but it's so overused. And,
Yeah.
you know, I see, I think I saw 40 plus people this week and not this week, last week, on Wednesday today. And I'll tell you, like, almost every new person, I went to that doctor and that doctor, they never told me nothing. And then they leave and I'm like, did you get your answers? They're like, yeah, you told me exactly what was happening. That's a good feeling. Like, even if I never see him again, it's like, here, this is what's happening. This is how you take care of it. It's really enjoyable.
For
So that's why
sure.
I'm in love with energy medicine for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I love taking people through the process. I hate when people say natural medicine doesn't work. And I'm like, which part of it? And usually it's because you did a week or your workshop or whatever, and there was 200 people in it, and there was only 2 people who saw success, who were already probably on the right. If you had 50 pounds to lose and you lost 10 because you stopped eating McDonald's 3 times a week instead of every day, like, that's different versus someone who's putting in a lot of work and effort. And that's the same for me in like fertility space. Like,
Mm.
if you get pregnant just by taking CoQ10, then you probably didn't need me. Right. But, just being deeper with people and creating connections, I vibe with that very much. So I appreciate you coming on. Do you have any like closing thoughts, any closing remarks, besides the fact that I will be getting your book, and I have a couple of people that I know will really benefit from that. So.
Yeah, I would love that. So, I mean, I always tell people that, trust in something higher than you. I believe in God and I'm a Christian, and it doesn't mean that you need to be, but when I test people, I ask the Holy Spirit to come through me. And my testing, so I tell people like, um, trust in somebody higher than you. Understand what you're dealing with. Have full trust in your practitioner, and then you can work from your heart instead of your brain. And when you trust in a higher purpose and a higher reason, you'll get that guidance, and you'll know exactly if you can quiet your mind. I mean, I think the worst thing to do is go on Dr. Google. Go on to the famous Instagram follower just pushing supplements. Have no idea. Like, how many times I'll tell you. I could pull out 50 files right now of people that did every parasite cleanse there was, and they came in and they had so many parasites in their body. They're like, no way. I'm like, that parasite formula did nothing for the parasite that you have. Like, have someone test. But the bottom line is, believe in God because God is there. God is good. God has created us, and you'll find the answers. That's really the key. You'll find the person that you need to work with.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Jack. That was awesome.
So much.
Let me just